The grand chambers of the Galactic Council stretched into impossible heights, its crystal walls reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. Captain James Walker stood at the center platform, his weathered hands gripping the edges of the holographic podium. Above him, tier upon tier of alien representatives looked down with expressions ranging from mild amusement to outright contempt. And so, James continued, his voice steady despite the growing murmurs. Earth's research into seventh-dimensional physics suggests that consciousness itself plays a role in higher-dimensional travel. He gestured to the complex equations floating in the air around him. The first laugh came from the Rigelian section, a harsh, clicking sound that echoed through the chamber. Others followed, until the entire hall buzzed with the sounds of multiple species expressing their amusement in different ways. Dr. Anna Reed, standing at the base of the platform, watched the reaction with narrowed eyes. 20 years of research reduced to a cosmic joke. But something about the Centaurian delegation caught her attention. While they joined in the laughter, their upper eyes remained fixed and alert, studying the human equations with too much intensity. "Please," a voice boomed across the chamber. High Counselor Marcus, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline form, raised his glowing appendages for silence. "Captain Walker, while we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm, you must understand how this appears to us. Many species here mastered fourth and fifth dimensional travel centuries ago. The very suggestion that humans, barely 3 centuries into space travel, could leap to seventh dimensional understanding is absurd," called out a voice from the Arcturus sector. "Their equations don't even account for basic quantum folding principles." James felt his face grow hot, but years of command training kept his expression neutral. "With respect, High Counselor, our calculations suggest that previous approaches to dimensional travel have been limited by conventional thinking. We believe that human consciousness processes reality in a way that—" The laughter erupted again, louder this time. A representative from the Sirius Confederation actually fell out of their hovering chair, their crystalline body chiming as they shook with mirth. Anna stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "If the Council would consider examining our practical test results." "Dr. Reed," High Counselor Marcus interrupted, his tone gentler now, almost patronizing. "Your species has achieved remarkable progress in a short time. The Council remembers well how quickly humans advanced from chemical rockets to basic fold drives. But there are universal constants, laws of physics that cannot be bypassed by wishful thinking." James watched as the holographic display of their work flickered and faded. The Council was ending their presentation early. His jaw tightened, but he gave a regulation bow. "We thank the Council for their time." As they walked towards the transport pad, Anna grabbed James's arm. "Did you see the Centaurians?" she whispered. "I was too busy watching my career dissolve," he muttered back. "No, look at them now." James glanced back. The Centaurian delegation had their heads together, all 4 of their arms moving in the rapid gestures of their private sign language. One of them held a data crystal that glowed with equations that looked surprisingly similar to their own. "They know something," Anna said. "Those equations they're reviewing. They're not laughing anymore." "Log it," James ordered quietly. "When we get back to Earth, I want every scrap of data we have on Centaurian dimensional research. Something tells me their recent technological leap wasn't just good fortune." As they stepped onto the transport pad, the sound of continuing laughter echoed from the chamber. James looked one last time at the assembled races of the galaxy, all so certain in their superiority. A memory flashed through his mind. An old video of the Wright brothers, being mocked by those who said heavier than air flight was impossible. "Ready for transport," the operator announced. Just before the beam engaged, James saw one of the Centaurian delegates break away from their group and begin urgently speaking to High Counselor Marcus. The Council member's crystalline form flickered with what might have been concern. Then the transport beam activated, and the last thing James heard was the fading sound of galactic laughter. Laughter that somehow didn't seem quite as confident as before. 3 days after the disaster at the Galactic Council, James found himself in the depths of Earth's dimensional research station, buried 2 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. The facility hummed with the steady pulse of quantum computers and dimensional sensors. He stared at the holographic display, watching as their calculations played out again and again. "There's something we're missing," Anna said, her fingers dancing through the floating numbers. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept since their return. "The math is right. I know it's right, but it's like we're looking at a puzzle with half the pieces missing." James walked through the hologram, letting the equations flow around him. "Show me the Centaurian data again." The display shifted, showing the glimpses of equations they'd managed to capture from the council meeting. Next to them, ancient symbols glowed, cave paintings and hieroglyphs from Earth's distant past. "Look at this pattern." Anna pointed to a series of repeating symbols. "We found these same markings in caves across Earth, some dating back 40,000 years. Our ancestors were drawing quantum patterns before they invented the wheel." "But what does it mean?" James rubbed his tired eyes. The door hissed open, and Tom, their quantum archaeology specialist, rushed in. His usual neat appearance was disheveled, and he clutched an old tablet in his hands. "You need to see this," he gasped. "We've been running it all wrong." He connected the tablet to the main system, and new data flooded the holographic display. "These aren't just random patterns our ancestors drew. They're representations of how human brains process dimensional space. Look." The display split, showing brain scans from various species. Alien minds lit up in organized, logical patterns when processing dimensional data. But human brains, it's chaos, Anna whispered. "No," Tom corrected. "It's not chaos. It's comprehensive. Other species process dimensions in sequence, like climbing a ladder. But human brains process them all at once, like seeing every side of a cube simultaneously." James stepped closer to the display. "Are you saying humans naturally think in higher dimensions?" "Not exactly." Anna's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "We don't think in higher dimensions. We dream in them. Every night, human brains construct impossible spaces in dreams. We navigate paradoxes that would drive logical minds insane. We've been doing it since before we could speak." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Tom brought up more data, showing how human children could intuitively solve dimensional puzzles that stumped alien supercomputers. "The Centaurians," James said suddenly. "They weren't laughing at our equations because they were wrong. They were worried because we were getting close to something they discovered." Anna nodded. "They must have found evidence of this in their studies of Earth. That's why they've been so interested in human psychological research." James stood up straight, his commander's posture returning. "How fast can we build a prototype?" "Build what?" Tom asked. "A drive that doesn't just push through dimensions, but works with how humans naturally process them. Not a machine that forces its way through space-time, but one that dreams its way through." Anna was already running calculations. "We'd need to completely redesign our approach. Instead of fighting against human consciousness like other species do, we let it guide the process." Her fingers flew across the holographic controls. "It's crazy, but it could work." "Get me everything you can find on human dimensional perception," James ordered. "Art, dreams, mythology. Anything that shows how we naturally think about impossible spaces. And increase security. If the Centaurians figured this out too, they won't want us catching up." As his team rushed to work, James looked at the ancient cave paintings still floating in the display. Their ancestors hadn't just been drawing pictures. They'd been trying to tell them something important about human nature itself. The next time they faced the Galactic Council, they wouldn't be bringing theories. They would show them exactly what happened when human intuition met higher dimensional physics. And nobody would be laughing then. The attack came without warning. James was reviewing test results in the Dimensional Research Station when every emergency screen flashed red. Above Earth's outer colony on Mars, space itself seemed to tear open. Multiple Centaurian warships detected. The defense officer's voice crackled through the emergency channel. They're using some kind of new drive system. His voice cut off as another spatial terror appeared behind his position. James rushed to the command center, where Anna was already pulling up sensor data. The holographic display showed impossible readings as Centaurian ships phased in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing like ghostly predators. They're using 6D technology, Anna said, her face pale in the red emergency lights. They're stepping around our defenses like they don't even exist. On the main screen, Earth's most advanced warships fired at the attackers, but their weapons passed through empty space. The Centaurian vessels simply shifted into another dimensional plane, making themselves untouchable before appearing somewhere else to strike. Colony 6 is gone, someone reported. They just erased it from existence, shifted it into another dimension or something. James slammed his fist on the console. Get me the Galactic Council. The connection took precious minutes to establish. When it finally did, High Counselor Marcus appeared, his crystalline form dimmer than usual. Captain Walker. The counselor's voice was formal, distant. We are aware of the situation. Aware. James fought to keep his voice steady. The Centaurians are attacking Earth's colonies with dimensional weapons. They're violating every peace treaty in existence. The Council has reviewed the situation and has decided to maintain our non-intervention protocols, Marcus replied. This appears to be a territorial dispute. Anna stepped forward. Territorial dispute. They're using technology they stole from human research to attack civilian targets. The counselor's form flickered slightly. We have no evidence of technology theft. The Centaurian Empire has demonstrated remarkable advances in dimensional physics recently. If Earth's defenses are inadequate, perhaps that demonstrates the wisdom of our earlier skepticism about human dimensional theories. The connection cut off abruptly. In the following silence, only the wail of emergency sirens could be heard. They knew, Tom said quietly from his station. The Council knew the Centaurians stole our research. They're letting this happen. Another alert blared. The main screen showed a Centaurian battleship appearing inside Mars' defensive shield perimeter. It fired once, and a research base that had stood for 50 years vanished into dimensional space. What's the casualty count? James asked, his voice rough. 3,000 on Colony 6. Another 1,000 from the Mars base. And we're getting reports of attacks near Europa now. The defense officer's hands shook as he read the numbers. Anna grabbed James's arm. The prototype. It's not ready. It has to be. She pulled up the latest test results. The neural interface is stable. The dimensional field generators are working. We understand how human consciousness interfaces with higher dimensions now. James stared at the casualty reports still streaming in. He thought about the Council's dismissal, about all the times they'd laughed at human theories about dimensional travel, about how they weren't laughing now, but were still willing to watch humanity suffer. How long to prep the prototype? He asked. 6 hours for minimum functionality. But James, we've never tested it with a full crew. The neural load cold. Another alert. Another colony lost. Get it ready, James ordered. And find me volunteers for the crew. People who dream big, who think differently. Artists, musicians, anyone who's good at thinking in impossible ways. As his team rushed to comply, James watched another Centaurian ship phase through solid matter to attack a defenseless science station. They thought their 6D technology made them invincible. They thought humans were primitive, limited beings who couldn't grasp higher dimensional concepts. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility known only to a handful of people, Project Ascendant took shape. The prototype vessel hung in a massive underground dock, its hull gleaming with patterns that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. James walked along the observation deck with the newly assembled crew. They were an unusual group, a music composer, a quantum physicist, an abstract artist, a lucid dream researcher, and a child prodigy who could solve impossible spatial puzzles. Each chosen not for their military experience, but for their unique way of seeing reality. The neural interface is different from anything you've trained with, Anna explained, leading them to the bridge simulation room. We're not just using your brains to control the ship. We're using your natural ability to comprehend impossible spaces. The composer, Bill, raised his hand, like how we can hear music in our minds. Exactly, Anna smiled. When you imagine music, you're creating complex patterns in your mind that exist in multiple dimensions of time and space. That's exactly what we need. They entered the simulation chamber, where 5 neural interface chairs waited. Each was surrounded by floating holographic displays showing impossible geometric shapes that hurt the eyes if you looked at them too long. Most alien races see dimensional travel as a mathematical problem, James explained. They force their way through dimensions using pure computing power. But humans, he gestured to the displays, we naturally think in ways that break dimensional rules. Every time you dream, every time you imagine something impossible, you're actually touching higher dimensions. Maria, the artist, stepped forward to study one of the floating shapes. These patterns, they're like the ones I see when I'm painting, when I'm trying to show something that can't exist in 3 dimensions. That's why you're here, Anna said. The Centaurians stole our basic research, but they don't understand this part. They can't. Their minds don't work like ours. The team took their positions in the neural interface chairs. Young Kevin, the spatial prodigy, looked almost excited as the neural links connected. Remember, James instructed, don't try to think about the mathematics. Don't try to solve the dimensional equations. Just feel the space around you, like you're dreaming with your eyes open. The simulation began. The chamber disappeared, replaced by an infinite void filled with layers of reality stacked like sheets of glass. Your minds are now linked through the ship's quantum core. Anna's voice came through clearly. Each of you perceives a different aspect of dimensional space. Together, you form a complete picture. Bill's music filled the void, turning mathematical patterns into harmonies they could feel. Maria's artist's eyes saw how the dimensions flowed together like colors in a painting. The lucid dreamer, Peter, recognized the space from his dreams and knew instinctively how to move through it. Kevin's spatial awareness tied it all together, while the quantum physicist, Dr. Lee, provided the scientific framework their combined consciousness could build upon. That's it. James watched as the simulation readings showed perfect harmony. You're not fighting against reality like the Centaurians do. You're flowing with it. The real ship powered up, its systems responding to their linked consciousness. The hull began to pulse with patterns that matched their combined mental state. Final diagnostics are green, Anna reported. The dimensional field is stable. All higher dimensional matrices are aligned with crew brainwave patterns. James looked at his unusual crew, each of them now moving in perfect synchronization with the ship's systems. The Centaurians thought they had stolen humanity's greatest weapon. But they had only taken the basic theory, the mathematical skeleton. They didn't have this, the human ability to dream in impossible spaces, to think in ways that defied logical reality. Project Ascendant is ready, he announced to the waiting command staff. And when we take this ship into battle, we're not just going to match their 6th-dimensional technology. He smiled as the ship's higher dimensional drive began to power up, responding to his crew's combined consciousness. We're going to show them what the 7th dimension looks like. Dimensional drive powering up, Bill announced, his composer's hands moving through the holographic controls like he was conducting an invisible orchestra. Around them, the Ascendant's bridge hummed with energy that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Neural synchronization at 100%, Anna reported from her monitoring station. All crew members' brainwave patterns are aligned with the ship's quantum core. James sat in the central neural interface chair, feeling the consciousness of his crew merging with his own through the ship's systems. Maria's artistic perception painted possibilities in his mind. Kevin's spatial awareness expanded his understanding of the space around them. Dr. Lee's scientific knowledge provided structure, while Peter's dream-walking experience helped them all navigate the impossible. Beginning test sequence, James commanded. Take us up to first dimensional shift. The Pacific Ocean above their underground base rippled as the ascendant rose. The water didn't part. Instead, it existed in the same space as the ship, neither solid nor liquid from their new perspective. This is different from the simulations, Maria whispered. I can see everything, all at once. She was right. Through their linked consciousness, they could perceive reality in ways no human had ever experienced before. The world around them existed in layers, like pages in a book that could all be read simultaneously. Preparing for seventh dimensional jump, Dr. Lee announced. Traditional physics would say this is impossible, but he laughed. Traditional physics never accounted for human intuition. James took a deep breath. Execute jump. The universe changed, not with the violent tear of Centaurian technology, but with the smooth transition of a turning page. The Ascendant didn't so much move through dimensions as dream through them, guided by the combined consciousness of its crew. We're everywhere, Peter gasped. His experience with lucid dreaming helped him grasp what they were seeing. Not just in different places, we're existing in multiple dimensional planes at once. Through the ship's sensors and their own expanded perception, they could see themselves. Not one ship, but infinite versions of themselves spread across dimensional planes that no human language had words to describe. Look at this, Kevin called out, his young mind adapting fastest to their new reality. We're not just moving through space-time. He struggled to find the words. We're harmonizing with it, Bill finished, understanding through his musician's perspective. Like playing all parts of a symphony at once. Anna's monitors were showing readings that should have been impossible. The ship isn't forcing its way through dimensions like the Centaurian vessels. It's resonating with them, using the natural frequency of human consciousness to exist in multiple states simultaneously. James understood now why the ancient cave paintings had shown impossible shapes. Their ancestors hadn't been trying to draw what they saw. They'd been trying to draw what they could feel. The human ability to comprehend the incomprehensible wasn't a flaw in their evolution. It was the key to something greater. Taking us back to normal space, he ordered. The Ascendant shifted again, reality folding around them like origami unfolding in reverse. They emerged above the Pacific, the ocean below them now looking strangely simple and limited. All systems normal, Anna reported, though her voice shook with excitement. We did it. We actually did it. No, James corrected her, understanding flowing through their linked minds. We did more than we planned. The Centaurians think their sixth-dimensional technology makes them masters of space-time. But we just proved that humans can not only access the seventh dimension, we can exist across all of them simultaneously. He stood up, their shared consciousness showing him exactly what they needed to do next. Send word to command. The Ascendant isn't just ready for combat. It's ready to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate the power of the human mind. Around them, the ship pulsed with energy that echoed their combined thoughts, ready to dream its way through dimensions in ways the logical minds of their enemies could never understand. The Centaurian fleet hung above Mars like a swarm of metallic wasps, their ships flickering between dimensions as they prepared for their final assault on Earth. 50 warships, each powered by stolen sixth-dimensional technology, ready to end humanity's resistance once and for all. They haven't detected us yet, Bill said from his station aboard the Ascendant. Through their neural link, the crew could feel his music turning the complex dimensional readings into patterns they all could understand. They can't detect us, Maria corrected, her artist's perception showing them how their ship existed in spaces the Centaurians couldn't even perceive. We're like a color they've never seen. James watched through the ship's sensors as another Centaurian vessel phased into normal space, its weapons charging. They're preparing to attack the Mars Defense Station. Time to introduce ourselves. The Ascendant moved, not through space, but through reality itself. Peter's dream-walking experience guided them through dimensional layers like swimming through sheets of rain. They emerged simultaneously at multiple points around the Centaurian fleet. What's happening? A panicked Centaurian transmission cut through space. We're detecting something everywhere at once. Now, James commanded. Kevin, the young spatial genius, reached out through the neural interface. His natural understanding of impossible spaces helped him weave a pattern through 7 dimensions. The Ascendant responded, creating a web of dimensional interference that trapped 20 Centaurian ships in normal space. Their 6th-dimensional drives are locked. Dr. Lee reported, his scientific knowledge helping them understand exactly what they were doing. They can't phase out. The trapped Centaurian ships fired desperately, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the spaces where the Ascendant both was and wasn't. Through their linked consciousness, the crew could see the enemy vessels like insects caught in amber, frozen in a single-dimensional plane. Secondary fleet approaching. Anna warned, they're trying to outflank us using dimensional jumps. James smiled. Show them why that won't work. Bill's consciousness turned the approaching ship's movements into a symphony of predictable patterns. Maria saw the spaces they would try to hide in. Peter knew the paths they would take because they were as clear as dream paths to him. Together, the crew wove a 7-dimensional net that caught the entire second wave of ships. Impossible. The Centaurian commander's transmission crackled across all frequencies. No technology can predict dimensional jump points. We're not using technology, James transmitted back. We're using something you forgot to steal from us. Human consciousness. The Ascendant shifted again, existing at every point the Centaurians might try to escape to. Where their enemies saw chaos, the human crew saw patterns. Where Centaurian computers calculated single paths through dimensions, human minds dreamed of infinite possibilities. Their weapons are powering down, Anna reported. They're surrendering. On the main display, the mighty Centaurian fleet hung helpless in space. Their stolen 6th-dimensional technology, which had seemed so powerful, now looked primitive compared to what human minds could achieve when linked with the right tools. Send word to Earth Command, James ordered. The threat is contained, and contact the Galactic Council. Tell them. He paused, remembering their laughter, their dismissal of human potential. Tell them to prepare for a demonstration of 7th-dimensional travel. One that will make them understand exactly what they've been mocking. As their message was sent, James felt the combined consciousness of his crew sharing his satisfaction. They had done more than defend Earth. They had proven that the human mind, with its dreams, its art, its music, its ability to see patterns in chaos, was more powerful than any stolen technology. The Centaurians had thought they could defeat humanity by taking their research. They never understood that the real power wasn't in the equations or the technology. It was in the uniquely human ability to imagine the impossible and make it real. The Galactic Council chambers were different this time. No laughter echoed through the crystal walls. No dismissive murmurs filled the air. Instead, a heavy silence hung over the assembled representatives as the Ascendant's crew took their places at the center platform. 3 weeks ago, James began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We stood here and were mocked for suggesting that human consciousness could offer a new approach to dimensional travel. Today, we're here to show you why that laughter stopped. Behind him, the massive holographic display activated, showing the defeat of the Centaurian fleet. The council members watched in stunned silence as the recording showed the Ascendant existing across multiple dimensional planes, effortlessly neutralizing technology they had thought unbeatable. As you can see, Anna stepped forward. The Centaurian ship's 6th-dimensional drives were rendered useless by our 7th-dimensional interference patterns. But that's not the most important part of what we achieved. High Counselor Marcus's crystalline form flickered with what might have been discomfort. The Council acknowledges that Earth's defensive capabilities have exceeded expectations. This isn't about military power, Bill interrupted, standing up from his station. It's about understanding reality itself. The music of the dimensions isn't something you can force with mathematics alone. Maria joined him, bringing up images of ancient human cave paintings alongside modern dimensional equations. Our ancestors weren't drawing nonsense. They were trying to show us something that every human mind can grasp instinctively: the pattern of reality itself. The council chambers erupted in discussion as representatives from 100 worlds tried to understand what they were seeing. Peter, the dreamwalker, smiled as he felt their confusion. They were still trying to process it all with pure logic. The Centaurians made a crucial mistake, Dr. Lee explained to the assembly. They stole our early research, our mathematical framework. But they couldn't steal what makes it work: the human ability to comprehend the incomprehensible. Young Kevin stepped forward, his presence silencing the chamber again. Using the neural interface they'd brought with them, he created a real-time demonstration of seventh-dimensional space that made several council members physically recoil. "This is how we see it," Kevin said simply. "Not as equations, but as patterns. Like seeing all sides of a cube at once, but with reality itself." James watched as understanding finally began to dawn in the council's collective consciousness. "We're not here to boast about our victory," he said. "We're here to propose something new." Anna activated another display, showing plans for what they called the Department of Dimensional Perspectives. "Every species perceives reality differently," she explained. "The Arcturians see time as a solid object. The Rigelians experience gravity as color. We've been so focused on finding one right way to understand dimensions that we forgot each perspective might show us something unique." The chamber was silent again, but this time with contemplation rather than shock. High Counselor Marcus floated down to their level, his crystalline form glowing with new intensity. "You propose a fundamental change in how we approach dimensional physics," he said, "not through technology alone, but through the combined perspectives of all sentient minds." "Yes," James confirmed. "Earth will share our seventh-dimensional technology freely, but we ask that each race share their unique way of perceiving reality. Together, we might see things that none of us could comprehend alone." The council's vote was unanimous. As the new Department of Dimensional Perspectives was officially established, with humans as its founding members, James looked at his crew. Bill, who heard the music of dimensions; Maria, who saw their colors; Peter, who walked their paths in dreams; Kevin, who grasped their patterns instinctively; Dr. Lee, who bridged the gap between intuition and science. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's dreams of reaching beyond the sixth dimension. Now those dreams had changed the course of civilization itself. As the council session ended, James heard something new in the chamber. Not mockery, but the sound of 1,000 species learning to dream together. The human race had done more than master dimensional travel. They had taught the galaxy that the path to understanding infinity began with the power to imagine it.